Now it's time for the most interesting part of the event, the live demo of growing vulnerabilities related to real-time gross settlement RTGS in the cooperative banks in the country. RTGS is the continuous process of settling payments on an individual order basis without netting debits with credit across the books of a central bank. With this, I would like to introduce Dr. Harold DeCosta, CEO IQSS. Dr. Harold DeCosta has created a niche name in the world of online defense and investigation techniques. Right from IQSS inception, its core value was to provide assistance to law enforcement agencies, judiciary, corporate, education, and allied departments in the government sector. Working on smaller cases, Dr. DeCosta has worked on mission-critical cases related to the darker side of cyber world and has come up successfully in his mission. Without further delay, let's proceed to the fireside chat between Dr. Harold DeCosta, CEO IQSS, and Dr. Deepak Kumar Sahu, Chief Editor, VAR India.
Let me introduce Dr. Harold DeCosta, CEO, Intelligent Quotient from Pune. He has done immense work into cybersecurity and the electronic evidence. Now I would request Dr. Harold DeCosta to speak on the banking regulations and what kind of problems one may anticipate in any bank, maybe in the cooperative bank. So I would request him to throw us some light related to the cybersecurity. And this is awareness for all the viewers of Cybersecurity Summit. Welcome, Dr. Harold DeCosta.
Thank you, Dr. Deepak ji, for the nice welcome. And I wish you all the best, that because you're doing such a great noble job for the people by making them aware that what cybersecurity breaches the bank could have, and how the common person could be victimized, and what are the policies, what are the remedies by which these instances could be minimized to a large extent. But before I do start across on talking about the cyber breaches, specifically in the banking sector, cooperative banking sector, my focus shall be on the RTGS and the NFT-based transactions, which today are going in a higher volumes. But before I do start, I just want to share with you some of the statistics. You know, the government data shows that in 2019 alone, India witnessed about 3.94 lakh instances of cybersecurity breaches. So in terms of hacking of state and central government websites, data shows that a total of about 336 websites belonging to central ministries, departments, and state governments were hacked between 2017 and 2019. And nearly 7 lakh cyber attacks took place in 2020. And why we are more concerned at this moment is because practically during the last 1 year, there was no work for people. And even if there was a little work, the work was being done from home. And therefore, the cybersecurity breaches have gone up exponentially. Point number 2, and that is during the last 1 year, there has been a huge upsurge in the banking transactions, online banking transactions. Well, you can't go to the bank because of the fear of COVID. And even if you go to the bank, there is no hard and fast rule that your work could be completed because of the other priorities which are there in the bank as far as the working for the common account holders. So therefore, under this context, many people, they were sitting at home and they're doing the mobile banking, internet banking, they were doing transactions through Paytm, Google Pay, so on and so forth. Incidentally, all of these online transactions come with a bit of a danger. I would not say a bit of a danger. It comes with a large quantum of danger. Specifically, if you see in India, with an overall population of about 135 crores, you find about 70 crore Indians approximately today hooked up to the internet. And by and large, every Indian spends almost about 5 to 5.5 hours per day on the mobile. It could be a social media, it could be for banking purpose or whatsoever. So I will go into the specific topic what I just discussed sometime before you on the NFT and the RTGS, how the cybersecurity breach can take place. Just a few days before, I was investigating a case in one of the cooperative bank. And this cooperative bank did not have the facility of RTGS and NFT with them. So they took this facility from a nationalized bank. And this nationalized bank gave them the facility of RTGS and the NFT transactions. Now, what happened was that since this is a online based transactions, the cooperative bank had almost about 10 to 11 branches spread across in the different parts. And in these branches, the concerned person who had that particular responsibility of entering the NFT and the RTGS transactions would post the data on its machine. And this data would be posted at the branch level by a person based on the instruction which is given by the account holder. And once these entries were passed by the concerned person in the branch office, it will get to be authorized by his senior, stating that whatever the transaction has been entered by his person is authentic and factual. And based on that, once that particular RTGS or the NFT transactions was made at the branch level, it was then posted to the server of this cooperative bank. But while it was being posted to the server of this cooperative bank, this data from the branch level will go to a cloud. Incidentally, this cooperative bank had a cloud server which was being subcontracted to a third party. And this third party in turn would have these transactions to be recorded on the cloud. One important feature, what I noticed during this investigation was that this data of this NFT and the RTGS based transactions, which was uploaded on the cloud, handled by a third party, was not on a dedicated server. It was definitely on a clustered server, but not on a dedicated server, which is a prime importance for every bank to have the data to be there on a cloud on a dedicated IP. Anyways, that was the first glitch. The second part was that the moment the data will be stored on the cloud, the concerned account holder will get an SMS saying that your request for NFT or the RTGS transactions have been processed, and in due course of time, the amount shall be debited from your account and credited into the beneficiary's account. So the SMS would go automatically to that account holder. So while this was being done, this transaction then, which was stored on the cloud, will then go to the server of this cooperative bank in the head office. While it goes over there, these files, these transaction files of the NFT or the RTGS shall then be pushed across to the nationalized bank server who had given the facility of RTGS and NFT to this cooperative bank. But while this was pushed to the nationalized bank server, there were two more security features. One, that the request which should be sent by this cooperative bank from its HO, the IP should be whitelisted. And this IP was whitelisted in the nationalized bank's server. So they would not accept any request unless and until it will come from a whitelisted IP, specifically a public static IP. Point number two, they had one more security feature, and that is the RTGS and the NFT transactions which will be pushed from this cooperative bank to this nationalized bank would only go if it is digitally signed. So till the time it is not been digitally signed by a hardware-based USB token, it will not be accepted by the nationalized bank for processing the RTGS or the NFT-based transaction. So this cooperative bank had a USB token of type 2 digital signature, wherein each of these RTGS or the NFT transactions would be digitally encrypted, and then it will be posted to the server of the nationalized bank. So once These transactions will then come to the nationalized bank server. They will check these security features, whether it comes from a whitelisted IP, public static IP, and second, whether it is also coming from whether it is coming with a digitally signed. Once it has been done, then the nationalized bank would then process the RTGS, NFT, and the next day they will send a confirmation to this cooperative bank's head office that yesterday you had sent me a request of say 3,000 RTGS NFT entries. These many have been processed and these many have not been processed. Some of them would not get processed for reasons because the beneficiary's account may not be right. Some of them may not be processed because there could be some data entry problem, so on and so forth. So the very next day, these successful and unsuccessful RTGS or the NFT based transaction would come to this cooperative bank via an email. Now, all this was going very well. In fact, this cooperative bank started this RTGS and NFT facility with this nationalized bank from 2nd of December 2020. Until 16th of December, everything was going on well. Well, from 17th of December till 2nd of January, 17th December 2020 till 2nd Jan 2021, there were almost about 289 fictitious RTGS or NFT transactions which were being sent to the nationalized bank server from this cooperative bank. And this went unnoticed by the cooperative bank. It came to their notice only on 2nd January when they were doing the reconciliation of this statement that there were about 289 fictitious entries which they have never sent, but they were being processed by this nationalized bank. And the amount total was about 14 crore 46 lakh rupees. This became as a big, a shock for the cooperative bank. So they spoke to this nationalized bank who had given the facility of the RTGS and NFT to them. So the bank, the nationalized bank then said that we want some time to diagnose this. By the time it became a 4th of January, 6th of January, this cooperative bank, they went to the police station with an application. And on 11th of January, the FIR was registered that there were about 289 fictitious transactions being posted from the cooperative bank server, which resulted in a loss of 14 crore 46 lakh rupees. But there are some few lessons to be learned from this. Point number one, this money, that's 14 crore 46 lakh rupees, which went from the cooperative bank server, it went from a pooled account. And none of the account holders got a SMS on their mobile phone that amount has been debited from their account. Well, it will not go to them simply because all of this money was siphoned from a pooled account. And when you talk about the pooled account consists of money which belongs to all the account holders. It's not specific that the money in the pooled account belongs to only those debtors from where the amount has to be debited from. So the 11th of January, the FIR was registered and then started the investigations. Well, there were so many shortcomings, so many lacunas in the system by which 14 crore 46 lakh rupees was being sniped out. I'm over here to tell you that what are the cybersecurity breaches and what resulted in the loss of this much money. Well, during the investigation, it was found that all this money which was being sniped out, it had gone from the cooperative bank server itself. But then the question mark is, if it is gone for the cooperative bank server, then the account holder should receive an SMS. But the account holder did not receive an SMS. Why it was? So when we went into the depth of this case, we found that these 289 fake transactions, it was originated from the cooperative bank server, but this 289 fake transactions were not there on the cloud server, was not on the backup server, which was maintained by this third-party software company. So this cooperative bank said that it is this mistake of this nationalized bank. They have processed the request without our intimation, because in a cloud database, there is no reference of 289 fake entries. And therefore they said that this is a cyber attack. There was a cyber attack. Our server was hacked. These entries were being posted from a server, which then was sent to this nationalized bank for this RTGS and the NFT process to be done. Well, we looked into this cloud server and found that 289 fake transactions were not found in this. Then the question came how it was done. So we then looked at the log sheets. We looked at the security log sheets. We looked at the firewall log sheets. But then it did not look that there was any third-party attack which was done onto the server. So there was no unauthorized access as such, primarily during the initial phase of investigation. Now, what happened? When we spoke to the software company who developed this system for this cooperative bank, interestingly, some statistics information came out. The first thing which came out was that the RTGS or the NFT entries which were being posted on the cooperative bank's head office server, these will be pushed by a scheduler program. And this software company had developed one program that every 5 minutes, it will take up these transactions of RTGS NFT, which is posted from the various branches of this bank. And then it will upload this data into a folder, which was given by this nationalized bank. From there, then it will be posted to the server of this nationalized bank. But the criminal, he bypassed that procedure. What he did was that he created some fake transaction files by using a facility called as cut and copy. So what he did was that all the transactions which were being done before, he would just cut and copy those files, and then he would put into a file which will not go through the program which was made by the software company. It will directly bypass that particular program. It will directly get into the folder of the nationalized bank, from where it will be pushed to the server of this nationalized bank. Now, let me tell you, all of this would not be possible to be done by a third party, even though he could be an intelligent hacker. The prima facie doubt goes that there is an internal attack, and that internal attack only can take place only if this information is given to a third person who then can do such type of an activity. Well, the 2013 cybersecurity guidelines, which are put forward by RBI, clearly states that the cooperative bank should have reasonable security practices in place. And if you look across the IT Act 2008, in section 43, the IT Act 2000, which was amended in 2008, section 43A says that every agency which holds the data of the public should have a reasonable security practices in place. Otherwise, they could be penalized up to a compensation of 5 crore rupees to every victim so-called affected. So when I spoke to the cooperative bank, I found that they had violated many of the regulations given by the RBI. Incidentally, these cooperative banks, what they do is that every 3 months, they do a filing of a report. And in that filing of a report, one of the option is that about the cyber security check of their internal network, the health of their network. This is basically a format. And in the format, the bank used to write, is your cyber security breaches? Have you done some assessment? Yes. Have you done a VAPT? Yes. Have you got a cyber policy in place? Yes. This will be just posted as a mundane activities without actually looking into the depth that whether this is really followed or not followed. So when I looked at one of the report which was being filed by this cooperative bank to the RBI, I said that, do you have a VAPT in place? He said, yes. So I asked him to show me the document wherein the VAPT of the network has been taken place. He showed me one piece of a paper. He said that there is a XYZ organization who has done a VAPT of my network. That organization was not empaneled by CERT-in. It's very important to note that every single bank, whenever it does a VAPT, it has to be done by an organization which is empaneled by CERT-in, which was not done in this case. Number two, I asked them, do you have a cyber policy in place? They said, we have a cyber policy in place. When I looked at the cyber policy in place, it was basically a cut, copy, paste from one of the blogs of the internet, and which was never been followed by any single individual working in the bank. Point number three, I asked them, do you have an information security practice in place? They said, yes. I looked at that particular, the guidelines, and in the guidelines, when I looked, it was specifically written that the password for every single user working in the bank shall be changed after 30 days. Believe me, all the persons working in the bank had one password, and that was similar for all the machines along the network, along the branches. Number four, I asked them that who all has got access to the server of your bank. In fact, everybody had access. There were no specific permissions which were been given that this person is authorized to access the server and this person is not authorized to access the server. Now, when I looked at it, I was shocked. My other learning which came from this was that I asked this bank that you have a digital signature. And when I spoke to this bank, I asked them on whose name is the digital signature registered. Very interestingly, surprisingly, I was puzzled. They said that the digital signature is registered in the name of the IT head, where he is not concerned. In fact, this digital signature has to be registered in the name of the bank, and the director, one of the directors, should be the custodian of it. Now, let me tell you, all of these are shortcomings which resulted in 14.5 crore rupees approximately lost from the bank. What I mean to say is that how vulnerable are the banks? Well, I think in today's circumstances, in today's scenario, each and every account holder who has an account in the bank should seriously ask a question to the bank that what are your security practices, cyber security practices, whether you follow it, whether these are properly examined by RBI to ensure that these cooperative banks follow these cyber security practices or not. The RBI also in 2017 in its cyber security practices have laid down some specific rules and regulations, which untimely are very good on the piece of a paper. But when it comes into the actual implementation, it's a big shock. One more fact I would like to discuss with you regarding this whole breach was that this cooperative bank put the onus that the nationalized bank is responsible to pay the money to them. So this news hit the headlines. It came on some of the regional TV channels that this nationalized bank is supposed to make the payment because this has been processed from their server. Well, the nationalized bank is not at fault. It simply is not at fault because it already had two security practices in place. One, it will only accept the request from the whitelisted IP, public static IP. And second, unless and until the document is not digitally signed by the cooperative bank, the nationalized bank would not accept that request. And under these circumstances, this cooperative bank also had a cyber insurance. And they said that now we will get this money from the cyber insurance, from the insured company. And so they communicated with them. But when they communicated with them, they found that there has been such a huge laxity from the cooperative bank. They fittingly rejected the request which was given by this bank and said, it is because of your ignorance that this has taken place. But my big question comes, the ignorance of the cooperative bank But who is the loser? It is the poor account holder who lost this money. Well, during this whole process of this investigation, we spoke to the cooperative banks heads. We spoke to the persons who developed the software. We also spoke to the nationalized bank designated people. And in all, it was found that it was not a outside attack, but it is an internal attack itself, which resulted in a loss of 14.46 crore rupees, and 2,50,000 approximately account holders are there in that bank, and with a total particular deposits of almost about 300 crore rupees. So I think when we talk about such type of breaches, I'm sure that RBI will take a cognizance of such type of things, and I'm sure that banks will be very much upright in ensuring that they follow the cyber security practices well in place. Last, I would just like to give you some few pointers, and these few pointers could be very important in the context of this. Well, what should be the framework in banks, the cyber security frameworks? The first point is there is a need for a board approved cybersecurity policy. Cybersecurity policy should be distinct from the broader IT or the information security policy of a bank. There should be arrangement for a continuous surveillance in the bank. IT architecture should be conducive to security. Comprehensively address network and database security is a must. Ensuring protection of customer information. There should be a cyber crisis management plan, cybersecurity preparedness indicators, sharing of information on cybersecurity incidents with RBI, very important, supervisory reporting framework, and immediate assessment of gaps in preparedness to be reported to RBI, cybersecurity awareness among the stakeholders, the top management, and the board is an important factor. And the last thing, what are the steps to ensure that such type of the cybersecurity breaches could be minimized? Point number one, need for well-defined security strategy, monthly vulnerability assessment and patching, end user security awareness and training, updating of security policies and standards, restrict access to files, allow employees working in the bank to handle documents only on a need-to-know basis, have a breach response plan which will help in triggering quick response to data breaches and help them in the reduction of harmful fake entries, and keep businesses and personal accounts separate. I think these are some of the key indicators which should be followed by every single bank to ensure that these cybersecurity breaches should be minimized. I think I have given you an overall part to you in saying that how this breach took place. We are still under the investigation process is still going on. I'm sure that in the next series, we will definitely, I'll definitely come across and say that, okay, we have caught the actual culprit, who had done this particular breaches. But as of now, the cooperative bank's laxity made the things more easier for a criminal to do a breach and a loss of almost 14.5 crore rupees.
It means that we have got about 5,000 cooperative banks in the country. Okay. And we don't have any idea that how many cooperative banks are comply with the RBI guidelines, even though they may be following their cooperative bank guideline, but seems that banks are playing with the public money, which they are the account holders' money. So from this thing, I think many banks, they will follow the strict guidelines of the RBI. Thank you, Dr. DeCosta, for enlightening us and gave a wonderful presentation to our audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Deepak ji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. DeCosta, for enlightening us on the facts, and I'm sure the cooperative banks will follow the guidelines of the RBI to enhance the security portfolio, and this brings a huge opportunity for the corporates in providing security solutions. Indeed, the cybersecurity sector is changing at a very rapid pace.